The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
First Big Podcast here, coming to you on a late Friday night here in South Florida. Muggy, of course, September. Only summer here in Florida. On the line, old friend of mine of almost 20 years. Josephine Zohny is with us. Josie, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm excited about this podcast. This is the one I'm really excited about.
I'm excited too. And I'm also excited that you outed both of us as being old, so that's cool.
Well, I mean, look, for every year you get older, obviously it's worse for me. I mean, I got a couple years on you. You know, what I mean, I already crossed that 40-year threshold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, 40 is the new 23. So.
Well,
we're good.
40. Well, I mean, whoa. You can't be saying that. I have kids. 40 is the new 65 to me, right? It feels that way as of late, and especially going through COVID and having a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, and virtual schooling. Although I gotta be honest, the virtual schooling hasn't been that bad for my oldest son. I mean, he has his moments, but for the most part, he's been pretty decent. We're already three weeks into it, so.
My hat's off. I can't imagine.
Yeah. We got a lot to talk about. This is the podcast actually a year in the making. Where should we start? I don't know. I feel like we should start. I want to start with the MJ stuff, the Square One documentary. But I want to, talk to you a little bit about your career. Like you do PR, right?
I do. I have my own boutique public relations firm. The first incarnation of it was strictly music focused, and I started up with one of my good friends pretty much straight out of college when I graduated from NYU. And then it took its second and I guess closest to its most present form in 2008, 2009, where I branched out from doing things other than music to fashion, hospitality, tech, healthcare, kind of across the board. Yeah.
I think when I met you back in 2002, that was something I think you were wanting to do even back then. Like that was something I think you were pretty much close to, something close to that.
Well, I was a music business major, and
right.
I think actually at that point I wanted to get more into A&R.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is just the opportunities that kept presenting themselves to me were always in PR or publicity. So, sometimes you just have to follow where the universe takes you.
Right. That's very true. Okay. The main reason why you're in this podcast, obviously, is, and you're actually
I'm a delight.
Huh?
The main reason I'm on is because I'm a delight.
That's true. That's very true. Also.
Yeah.
No, but you're actually not even the first subject of this topic. We've been discussing on this podcast a little bit here and there. I try to really avoid talking about the Michael Jackson allegation stuff too much unless I have to. I feel like I have to. I went a good couple months after last year when Leaving Neverland came out, not talking about it until I had to. And when Square One came out, it's funny. I remember when Square One, the idea of Square One came out. I remember seeing the trailer, having no idea you were involved in the project. Now, funny thing is that you're not the first person on this podcast that's been part of this project. We have a mutual friend, of course, Jenny Winings, who's been on this podcast actually numerous times. We discussed, her take, her experience with Square One, also her experience with, the second accused of Michael Jackson, Gavin Arvizo, in the past and recently too in April. What I didn't expect was that, and judging from this documentary, this is pretty much centered around you and your testimony. For the most part.
I have to say, I was a little surprised about how much of it revolved around me and my experience. When I was sitting there in the premiere, and I was the first thing that kind of came on the screen at the beginning, it was a little terrifying.
Yeah. You're very shy. You're a pretty shy person.
I am. I can be outgoing for work when I need to be, but just who I am as a person, I'm very shy. I don't like attention focused on me.
Right.
But so Danny had to do some convincing to get me to come and speak to him initially because, you know, I don't love the spotlight on me. And also I didn't know how this narrative was going to go after leaving Neverland.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't know what the media landscape was going to be, and I wasn't sure if this was something that like the Jackson family kind of just wanted to be quiet about and let it go away, or if it's something that they wanted to pursue to like actively combat.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do anything that, you know, the family would be upset with or anything. So yeah, Danny had to do a bit of convincing, and then he, you know, finally convinced me, and I met with him and I did the interview. It was very, you know, seamless conversation, maybe an hour long.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought I would be like 5 minutes of the documentary at most.
Really?
Yeah. And
so you weren't aware of the I mean, at least at the moment, at the time when you were doing the interview and all that, and still trying to gather information about the project, like you didn't know exactly what was centered around. In other words.
Well, when initially he was just going to do an interview with me,
mm-hmm.
and then he decided that it warranted something bigger. You know, that it would have been a disservice to the whole topic if
Correct.
it just focused on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually assumed that it would be, my part would be much less after he started looking into, you know, other components of the 1993 case.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that my part was going to be minimized because there's just, you know, you and I both know because we've been researching this for years, that there's just so much information that points to Michael's innocence, you know, so I, you know, wasn't sure how much I would fit into it. And then when I saw the premiere, I was like, oh, okay.
So you didn't even know how much of use you had on the whole thing until you saw the premiere?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't mislead me or anything like that.
Right,
like,
right.
He does, but I guess I just still kind of, you know, waved it away. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm a big part of it, whatever, you know? I thought he was just saying that to, like, make me feel good.
And the reason I asked that is because when I saw the trailer for it last summer, and, you know, because Jen sent it to me. Jen was the one that sent it to me initially, the link. And I had no clue what it was. And then I see you, and I'm like, holy shit. and the reason why I was shocked is because, you know, and obviously people who've seen documentaries since then, you know, now know that you were, I don't know, classmates, I guess, at one point, or with Jordan Chandler.
Yeah.
But but the thing is, the reason I was stunned is because I had already knew this 18 years ago, because you told me that you went to school with him, and I knew in the moment.
Yeah, I think you were one of the very first people that I told, because when I figured out who he was, I truly believed that I was just like, nobody's going to believe me. You know, who am I going to tell this to? Oh, it's like, you know, I really didn't think anybody was going to believe me. Like, oh, of course, Michael Jackson fan ends up in class Jordan Chandler. Like, you were like probably one of the first 5 people who knew.
I'll be honest with you. Like, when he told me, now, granted, this is now freaking 2002. You know, it's a whole different world than we are now. And I had a lot more hair back then too, especially. But you know, back then, even when he told me, like, I believed you, but you know, obviously, like, okay, I believe her, but I don't know, maybe she's just saying it just to say it. But you know, given the person you are and you have been for a long time, why would you lie? Like, you've always been a stand-up person, you know. So why would you lie?
No. Yeah, particularly now. That's all something that's annoyed me. Which you can't let things that people say on social media get under your skin. But I just wonder what people think I would gain at this point. You know, lying about it.
Well, especially now with everything being so open in the internet and all that stuff, I get it. But back then, especially too, like, you weren't, at least from where I gathered, you weren't very public about this stuff, even back then.
No.
And I didn't say anything too. I actually didn't say anything to anybody really, other than like maybe very close people, close friends of mine, you know, who didn't really give a shit about the whole thing. And the fact that you were like, I had no idea, and I learned this through the documentary, that you were actually on the witness list too. On top of that, I had no idea. That part surprised me. I didn't know that. That I did not know. I was stunned on that one.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think who I spoke to about that. I mean, I think very few people knew that I was on the witness list in terms of like the fan community until after it was over.
Right.
And then it became, you know, when it became public record, then, it was really only a handful of fans, though, that were really going through the papers, all the court documents.
Back then, you mean?
Yeah, at that point.
Right. Well, again, the access is different now. Like, back then, you had to do extra digging to find the stuff. Now it's been reprocessed.
So widely available.
Right. No, and this is why it stunned me, because, again, my impression was that you didn't really go public with this, and it didn't really matter. So I had no idea you were on the witness list. And I was trying to tie the two together. So how did Danny know you were friends or colleagues with Jordan Chandler? I was trying to tie the two together, and then I guess there was, I guess being on the witness list, that does help. Yeah,
the witness list definitely did point him in the direction of me. But actually, the funny thing was that he asked me, because he had been told that I was on the witness list, and he'd seen it on Twitter. But he asked me, he's like, "Yo, have you ever seen it? Do you have any proof that you were on it?" Something along those lines. And I was like, "Yeah." And I sent him the link to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Jenny had never seen it. So that's how Jenny saw herself on the witness list for the first time.
Right.
Was the link that I sent Danny, because like you said, these documents weren't widely available back then.
Yeah.
I just happened to have it because I have a lot of friends who are reporters, and one of them found it for me.
Right. So, I don't want to give too much away, because I want people to actually watch the documentary and see for themselves, and judge their own, their beliefs on everything on this matter. But it seems to me that based on everything your experience with Jordan, that, I mean, he did he actually ever say? Did he know that you knew who he was?
I can't say for certain, but there was a certain point where I couldn't imagine that he didn't know.
Right.
I never confronted him about it, but I was very open about my love of Michael Jackson, and I was known as a fan.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to ask a lot of people from school and from that program about me, that's probably one of the first things they would mention.
Oh, really?
Because it was a music business program, and it's a music business program at a liberal arts school in, the Village in New York City, and so the kids were very cynical and only into indie things, and anything that was R&B or pop was sort of dismissed. And I was constantly jumping up and down, you can't erase the relevance of this music and that music.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I've always been very outspoken about my beliefs in that sense.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of them would probably point them.
And
the first thing they would think about me.
Right.
So
go ahead.
He definitely knew. And the first thing he said to me, actually, I was wearing my Jackson Victory Tour T-shirt.
Right.
I think I said that in the documentary. Yeah, he came up to me and told me that he liked my shirt. In one of the very first days of school in 2001. Right.
I remember you saying that on the documentary. You said also too on there that he wore a lot of Michael related stuff, right? You said fedoras, which he did wear also too, even when he was 12 years old, when Michael was and his family were touring together. So that's not a surprise. And you said his room also had a lot of poster stuff too, something like that.
That's what I was told. I was never in his apartment, but that's what I was told. Yeah.
Right. So that's like somebody that touched him. That's in my opinion.
I certainly don't think so either. I mean, and particularly, the kind of music that he did, whenever he was asked, he would reference Michael as an influence. You would think that if he'd been, abused by this person, he wouldn't constantly bring him up.
Yes, especially when you have this testimony with you, then you have, obviously, everything that happened with his family from 1993 on, him being emancipated from his parents, or his dad, whatever. I think it was both parents. Wasn't it both parents he got emancipated from? I believe.
Both parents, yeah, because I think that his mother testified in the 2005 trial that, she was estranged from him for, at that point, I don't know, over 10 years.
Right. And then obviously people who dig through these things that really care did know that him and his father did not have a good relationship pretty much from start to finish, pretty much, you think about it. So it when you tie those things together with what your experience was with Jordan, it kind of makes sense. And again, the things I can understand when people say, "Oh, I don't believe her. She's a fan." I get that,
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, no, I do too.
But again, at least for me, where I'm sitting at, the fact that you told me this 18 years ago, and I already knew this, and then 8 years later, we're having the same conversation about, I wasn't joking. You spent time with this guy, you went to school with this guy, and you had time with him, so there's no reason right now in your 30s to be lying about this now. It's stupid. It's silly in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would be really risking my reputation.
Exactly, especially given what you do in the business you do also too. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you still, even though you are a fan and you do care about the legacy of Michael, all that, it did surprise me that you did this though. It did surprise me because again, knowing you as long as I have, you've always been again more in the background, more somebody that's not really want to be out there all the time. Even something like this, I'm surprised you still did this, to be honest with you.
I think I just felt that it was important at this point in time because Michael Jackson was being attacked. His character was being attacked. His legacy was being attacked from every side. And it's very frustrating as somebody who works with the media a lot, to see just one narrative being spun. Mm-hmm. And the narrative, particularly is incorrect and is false, because of the research that you've done, not just because you're a fan, but because, you're just privy to certain information. And I just felt like I couldn't be quiet about it anymore. Right. Now, having said that, I definitely didn't feel like, okay, I'm going to shout this all from the rooftops. Like I spoke in a very controlled, setting.
And that's important Danny. Too. The delivery counts too, because you don't want to sound like some nut fan. Like, this guy's
exactly.
It really hurts credibility too. Yeah.
To the tabloids.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
No, I was just Sorry, that's my phone.
It's okay.
I don't mean to do that. Danny's quite young, but I was really impressed by his professionalism and his interview with Taj and Brandy that he did.
Michael's niece and nephew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And, I just had a good feeling about him right away. And I was like, okay, if I am going to talk, I'm going to talk to him.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just so, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Leaving Neverland. I've seen it twice, actually.
Did.
Huh?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing because I wanted to know what was being said. So I have seen it. Not twice, but once.
I saw it twice just for information's sake, so I could debunk the whole damn thing, which I did pretty well with it, actually, too. I'm actually surprised that it was debunked as easy as it was, considering how they presented it, because, first off, nobody other than the press was allowed to see it months before. And the fact that it came out, and then all of a sudden you had all this information come out within days of, wait a second, there's some question marks here about this allegation, this and that, and timelines and all this. It was stunning how, because I'll be honest with you, I really thought that this not that would be the end of Michael Jackson, obviously, because there's still allegations that can't be proven, but at the uproar of what it was coming into it, from the time they announced they're doing the documentary in January all the way up to early March when it came out, you would have thought, oh shit, it's like the end of the world here. And then, it hit, and then there was a lot of skepticism also too. And then the debunking started, and I was like, whoa, this is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And now we're a year and a half later, and he survived.
Yeah, he survived his, there are always going to be people who take shots at his legacy. But I think that enough people, understand that he's a target and that so much of the stuff that's said about him is just blatantly false. And and when you lie, and here's the thing I always say, when you lie about little things that you don't really even need to lie about, which is what happened a lot during Leaving Neverland. Yeah. I think that says a lot about the validity of the piece as a whole, I
think
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say what's really helped Michael too, I think, in death 11 years later, and I told Jen this in April, is that the access. People have now more. I don't want to get political here, especially too right now, anyway. But there is some realism to Donald Trump saying, fake news. There is some there is something to that, And people by nature, whether side of the aisle you're on politically, are always skeptical of the media. And I think because there's now more counter-information now in 2020 than it was in 1993, in 2003, whatever, it's a lot easier to defend Michael now in a way because of, the information. And legit information, too. And the fact that you had documentaries come out, like, within months after, the HBO documentary came out, it's like, whoa, okay. Especially this one. This one being the most effective because, this was on YouTube for the first couple months, and all of a sudden now it's on Amazon, and it's crushing on Amazon.
Yeah, it's doing really, really well on Amazon. I had it's funny, my ex-boyfriend's grandmother called me.
Oh, really?
Told me that she saw it on Amazon, yeah. And she's 89.
Oh, wow.
And she just happened to be scrolling through, and she's like, oh, documentary on Michael Jackson, let me watch this. So it's really being seen by all kinds of people, which is what you want. That's the goal. You don't want to just be talking to fans.
Right.
You want people who are just casual observers to see this and understand.
Well, there's an impact. I don't think social media is the ultimate elixir of the world, but if you use social media to some degree, there's an impact happening. There's people who are changing their minds, people who are at least, questioning, the whole thing face value. How has that been for you personally in terms of, because there's some obvious notoriety and fame to this for you especially.
Mm-hmm. It's been, most of the feedback to me has been positive and really supportive, and I've gotten so many nice messages from not just Michael Jackson fans, but just people who happened to see the documentary and were just casual observers, or maybe they were really big fans when they were younger, but they felt kind of uneasy after the allegations. There's been so much positive feedback. People finding me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Twitter. And most of it has been great. Some of it has been, let's just say I never want to be famous.
Yeah. There was one time where there was something where, I think it was one time like last year where there was some negative, one thread. I saw one thread that was negative in a way where they were questioning your testimony and what you were saying on the documentary, and I had to go in there and destroy them immediately. Yeah, I did that.
Oh, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
There have been, of course, there are going to be some people who are naysayers. Now, I don't have a problem with people questioning it in the sense, because if it were not me, I might be skeptical too, because it's, it's so convenient. This person's a Michael Jackson fan and they just happen to have been in courses with George Chandler. I recognize how, convenient that sounds and why somebody would be skeptical.
Well, yeah. Well, I felt more two things here. You're my friend, and number two, I know you told me this stuff, so I feel like I had some at least the if I had an ability to at least substantiate what you're saying,
which I appreciate so much.
Right.
I thought it was funny though, because certain people who were, I guess, attacking the validity of what I said had actually reached out to me and tried to get me to talk to them.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So I was like, a little fan drama. I don't miss that.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And you did the right thing by locking your account, too, especially. That was smart.
Yeah.
Very smart. Cause I couldn't deal with that.
For fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about the estate today? I say this today because when I saw the social media, they put a picture of was supposed to be Michael Jackson, was actually an impersonator on there. Yeah, jeez. Do
you want me to just be honest?
Go right ahead.
I refuse to believe that the state is this incompetent. So the fact that they allow this sort of thing to go on just shows me how little they actually care beyond just lining their own pockets. And it really, really upsets me because there are so many people who would take care of the social media with such diligence and attention to detail. And instead they, appear to be hiring imbecile after imbecile.
Right.
It really upsets me. Somebody who does this for a living, it infuriates me because there's no excuse for the things that have happened on his social media.
So a part of me feels like okay. So, I'm probably totally wrong here, but I'll say it anyway. A part of me feels like they're trolling fans, because I think they get so much negative feedback from the fan base, and it's
I wouldn't doubt it.
It's a big fan base. For the record, obviously Michael Jackson. It's a big fan base that I think they're just trolling just to do it. To get him.
I wouldn't doubt it. And, if it were just a little thing here and there, maybe I'd be amused by it. But just even the Q&A section or the frequently asked questions section on the redesigned site, embarrassing. So embarrassing.
It is really embarrassing, considering the nature and how the artists too. Like, they sit there and say that they're the envy of other states. I mean, maybe financially. That's about it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe financially. I mean, I do believe that was probably a pot shot on Londell McMillan, because Londell, at one point worked with Michael and also worked with the family, and represents Prince's estate now.
Oh, he does. And I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, to some degree. I mean, I know that there was also some controversy between his family, too, and the state. But, yeah, Londell was a huge part of Prince's career, from the 90s.
Right.
And I know Londell because I worked with The Source magazine. Right. So I think, and Londell is he's brilliant. He's an incredible lawyer. He's a stand-up guy in terms of, what he believes and sticking up for his clients, and for the estate to take pot shots at what I assume is just pot shots at him is silly and something that Michael would never condone.
Well, that's all John Branca at this point, right? I mean, that's all.
Exactly.
And
it's like, really isn't John Branca in his 60s now?
Yeah, I gotta be honest, though. Like, while this is bad, the estate's been pretty terrible. Let me rephrase that. I thought the estate did a really good job for the first 5 or 6 years out the gate. I thought some of the projects they did, with Spike Lee, the Bad 25 was amazing. To this day, that's probably the best they've done. Some of the DVDs, the Full Motown Off the Wall documentary on Showtime was amazing. Obviously. They've done some decent things, obviously we can go back and forth on the CDs and stuff, the albums they've released, the 2 albums. That's a whole little can of worms. But I thought for the most part, for the first 5 or 6 years, they did a really good job. And then the last 4 years...
I think that they were proactive. Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, what's next? And so on one hand, I don't want to be one of those fans that sits there and like constantly criticize them over and over again, because it's just monotonous at this point.
I will be that fan.
You would?
No, I'm just saying. I'll be that fan. No, it's just so frustrating for me, because his legacy deserves better than what they have been doing, over the past several years.
So
I agree with you.
Then?
At the beginning, there was definitely more effort. I think that but there was more of an incentive, I think, for them to rehabilitate his image, because public sentiment was, so much more favorable towards him when he passed, unfortunately, because that's how society is.
It pissed me off too. Like, it's funny. Like, when that first year, I remember the first year when he passed, and I remember like everybody like, oh, I love Michael Jackson. I'm like,
where were you? Where were you?
Like, where the fuck were you 5 years ago, dude? Like, where were you 5 years? Like, seriously, like, okay. Like, even people in my family, like, I hate to say it, but I had to call out my dad one time, like, dude, stop. You were giving me shit like 2-3 years ago. So yeah, but
unfortunately, it's a bad thing about human nature, or at least nature of many people. But they had it was like an easier game for them, I guess, to rehabilitate his image further and then line their own pockets. And they had This Is It, which they were able to produce, which I know is controversial too.
You did see it though, right? You did see This Is It though?
Oh yeah, I've seen This Is It. I mean, it's
a hard watch.
I'm sorry?
It's a hard watch though, in my opinion. It's a hard watch.
Yeah. I mean, I cried during it in the theater.
Did you really?
Because I went the night it came out. Yeah, I went out with my friend David Shaw. Mm-hmm. Shout out, Dave, if you're listening. You remember him as Lost Children from our board days?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We went to see it together, and I cried because, one, obviously I missed him and I was sad that he was gone, but two, he didn't look well. No,
he did not. When I saw it in theaters, like, my goal was to actually see how he looked like, how he communicated. I was more interested in not so much in music, but about this how he communicated with people, like how he communicated with his staff, how he communicated with the the dancers and the singers, and I mean that guy. I'll say it again, like for a guy of his celebrity, and I mean you don't get bigger than Michael Jackson. The guy was way too kind to people, way too kind.
Yeah, he definitely was, and he always treated everybody that he worked with such respect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've seen other artists who are certainly not of his stature or talent or anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that they miss.
Well, yeah, it's funny because my mom, like, she saw the movie too. Like, my mom met I've told this many times, but my mom met Michael Jackson numerous times in the 70s, and in the early 80s. And she came back to me and said the same thing too. Because he's never changed. He treated everybody the same way as he treated me in the 70s. When I met him at the Wiz premiere, and I met him at with J5 back in wherever they were performing at, and it was the same thing. It never changed.
I think a testament to that too is that his children still behave that way as well.
Yeah. I would say, I feel really bad for Paris though. Paris is going through a lot. A lot.
She's what?
Paris has gone through a lot. Paris has gone through a lot.
Yeah. I
wait for her. Prince, I feel like Prince, especially in the last couple of years, like he's so sure of himself. Like I love seeing Prince and how he's operated now, as an adult, into charities and whatnot, and he just seems so stable.
Yeah, he seems very stable, very self-assured, well-spoken.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it was Carrie Fisher or something like that. There's some celebrity of like that era who spoke about meeting his kids and called him like the most self-assured child she'd ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And he's quite self-assured now. Wish them well. I mean, Paris unfortunately had to go through a lot, but by all accounts, they appear to be polite, thoughtful, all of these things. So,
did you watch the Paris Jackson documentary on Facebook Live? On Facebook,
I did. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
I'm rooting for her.
Oh, without question. I love Paris. I think all of his kids, especially too. BG, we see it much, obviously, but like I think both his kids actually represent Michael in some ways. Where I think Prince is pretty much the more assured, stoic Michael Jackson. That side of Michael Jackson.
She's the emotional side.
Paris is the emotional and the more rebellious side, if you will. Because we've been told for years that Michael had a rebellious side to him, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that she came across well in that series. I always worry, and this could just be me being, hypersensitive to it because I'm in the industry. I do worry that maybe she has some sycophants around her too.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly just hope that she, is able to stay in a place that is healthy and she surrounds herself with people who genuinely care about her.
Right. I got the same vibe too. There's a lot of people around her who probably just don't have her best, interests. And unfortunately, I won't lie to you. I even wonder if family included. At least years ago, anyway. Maybe not so much now, but I did get the feeling that maybe some family members were just around because obviously, benefit financially. I don't know. I'm just thinking out the box a little bit,
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's something that they have to consider because of who they are and what comes along with them. So I think it's always it's better to err on the side of being cautious, but by the same token, you don't want to be so cautious that you isolate yourself from.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, it's amazing how everything he's gone through, even posthumously, he has still survived. Like people there's a lot of fans I'll talk to and they'll be like, oh, I can't take this anymore. This is stressful. I'm like, this is nothing. I wish you were old enough back in '93 and 2003 when we had to go through when he was alive, when he had skin on the wall. You know what I mean? So it's different. And the fact that and I'm a data guy at the end of the day. Like people said, well, is he canceled? He's not, obviously. I purposely did this in March last year when documentary came out last year. Michael Jackson had 13.2 million YouTube subscribers. Okay, as of right now, he's at 18.3 million. That's plus 5 million subscribers in the last year alone, year and a half alone, since the documentary came out. all his
Doesn't sound like it's canceled to me.
Yeah, and YouTube is probably the best thing to use because YouTube is still probably the biggest medium, today in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that he's at that many subscribers and added that many more, since the doc, that should tell you that he's still sustaining. So I don't know. It's just, it gets frustrating sometimes though, because people are like, this is too much,
Yeah, it does get frustrating, and I have to be sort of careful and walk the line too, because I can't risk like ruining certain relationships. Not personally, because people around me I think know where I stand, but professionally, I don't want to completely ruin a relationship if there is a difference of opinion there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard for me, and I'm sure you understand this too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for me to just like listen to the falsehoods and not, go into actually like fact checking mode.
Right.
It's discouraging. I mean, I'm if there's any like little bit of anything to be grateful for, it's the fact that he doesn't have to, deal with this now.
Have you? Last question on this topic. Have you had to deal with without mentioning any names here, of course? Have you had to deal with people in the industry, like with opinions? Like people like seeing you on this or know that you're on a documentary like this?
Yeah. I have, certain reporters that I'm friendly with have seen it. That's another thing too. It's funny because I would say to the fans, because there's fans focus on the reporters who are like anti-Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, why aren't people speaking up? I would say, and I can't, I'm not going to put anybody out there, name names, but I would say pay attention to the reporters that have said nothing on the subject,
mm-hmm.
either way,
mm-hmm.
because more likely than not, they're in your camp. They just can't speak right now.
Right.
But if they have an in at any given moment, they will. So I just, the fans are very observant.
Yeah.
I think that they should.
And
pay attention to that.
Yeah, and that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Switching gears real quick. Goo Goo Dolls. When'd you get into them?
I love the Goos. Actually, so I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, 1995 was a very pivotal year in terms of my musical growth and tastes, because History came out, obviously, 1995.
I was 15 years old. Oh wow! I was freshman in high school. Oh my god.
Yeah.
God, I feel old. Shit.
I was 10 going on 11.
Yep. Jeez.
And yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so, History came out, and A Boy Named Goo came out.
Yes, that's correct.
I heard Name on MTV, and I loved it. And actually, at the time, I bought A Boy Named Goo, and it was a little too hard for me because I pretty much only listened to R&B at that point in time, and Boy Named Goo is like a very.
That's why it shocked me, because when I first met you in 2001, 2002, you never were into anything but R&B and Michael Jackson. That's it. That's all you ever talked about. Whenever you and I talk music, you would never talk about anything other than that, bubble of R&B, maybe pop and Michael. That was it. That's why I was stunned.
I mean, I always you knew I liked the Goos though when you first met me. I've never been quiet about it.
Yeah, I guess, but you never really talked about it much until probably later on, like a couple of years after that.
One of my names was Resnick's PYT.
I didn't know that. I don't remember that one. I remember that.
Yeah. So they were a little hard for me in 1995. So I was 10, and I still like Name, and I listened to the album, and I think I enjoyed it, but I just kind of filed it away. And then, when Dizzy Up the Girl came out, I was 13, 14.
That was 99, right? 98, right? 99, right?
Yeah, 98, yeah.
I love
it was just over.
I love that album.
Yeah, it's an incredible album. I mean, it stands up. It doesn't sound dated. I went to the 20th anniversary concert for it. They did a 20th anniversary tour. It's just like, it still sounds so good. But yeah, I was always, from that point on, I was very into them. But I hadn't seen them for a few years, and then a friend of mine took me to one of their concerts for my birthday, and I was like, okay, throwback. And so over the past couple of years, my interest definitely reignited. Although I always listen to the music, but
Of course.
it's just nice to be reminded how much you really love something and how much, music has impacted you and how it's like formed you as a person.
So imagine, you remember I played in a band for a long time. Imagine two metalheads, like myself and my lead singer, back in the day, back in 2005, 2006, going to, about to do a show, driving to a concert, like, to perform, not to attend, to perform, him and I.
Mm-hmm.
And we're playing Goo Goo Dolls in the car to get amped up. Not metal, not metal. We're playing Goo Goo Dolls in the car. We did that a lot. My lead singer at the time, he was a big fan of them too. He loved the album.
It's a great album. I mean, I maintain that Johnny Resnick can't write a bad song.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love them. I think they're fantastic. I think that they're also one of the few bands where their live show is better than their CDs.
Mm-hmm.
They're just super talented.
And they're still around now too. That's crazy.
They are. Yeah. They came out with the deluxe edition of Miracle Pill, which is their most recent album.
Right.
Just came out. They have top 40 on hit on the Hot AC charts.
Mm-hmm.
Fearless.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still doing their thing. It's nice, to see a band that actually, writes their own music, performs, just genuinely nice people.
Yeah,
how many times
you seen them? What, at least 20 times, right? More than that, right?
Oh my God, yeah, more.
Obsessed.
Well, more than that, yeah. They're very good people.
Yeah,
from what I can tell.
I think I told you a while back that like Goo Goo Dolls to you is equivalent to Metallica for me. Like there's Michael, number one. I think Michael's number one to you, right? And then after that is whoever after that. Like Michael's number one or the number one. But I got these like bunch of bands I love and whatever. And Metallica's the number two for me. I've seen them 4 times, but not 20 times, but 4 times. But when we're talking about the Goo Goo Dolls, it reminds me of like, okay, well, this is my number 2, my next obsession, you want to call that, and that's Metallica for me. Same way Goo Goo Dolls for you. That's crazy.
Yeah, because it's like I think you mentioned this before. It's like Michael's like larger than life. He's such a imposing figure.
Well, that's the thing too. That's the thing. Like, like I say this in the most respectful way possible. Like, he never felt human to me, and not to say that he wasn't a human being, because I know he's a human being, but in my family, Michael Jackson is 3 generations of fandom. It's my mother. Mm-hmm. My mother was a diehard fan, still to this day. Then it's me, and then my 7-year-old son loves him now. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
So it's
a great father. Raise him right.
Right, exactly. But I was born into it. It. Really, to be honest with you, like I woke up. My first poster was E.T. Michael Jackson.
Wow.
And I didn't ask for it. It was just Michael, and you're gonna accept it. And that's it. And okay, cool. You know what I mean? That's how it was. 1982. And we're talking before Thriller. So it was just that was life with my mother. So yeah, he never felt human to me. That's why I was telling you, like, the reason Metallica speaks to me in different ways is that Metallica's music for me was more. It got me at a time where I was going through that, 15, 16 years old, you go through high school, and changes and stuff, everything's awkward, and anger, and they spoke to me, they gave you something different that Michael's music didn't give me at the time.
Right. I mean, and Michael's reality was just so different than, like, pretty much anybody else's reality. So, it was hard to relate to a lot of the things that he had to go through in his life. I mean, there's certain, themes that are universal, loneliness, heartache, all those things, but you couldn't, like, imagine yourself in the narrative of his song.
Hell no.
Because these things would never happen to you. But, for me with the Goo Goo Dolls, Dizzy Up the Girl came out in 98. Great album. I loved it. Got super into them. Then went to their back catalog, and rediscovered A Boy Named Goo, and then went to Superstar Car Wash, which was probably like their breakthrough album. And Superstar Car Wash was probably the first album that I listened to where I felt like I was in it. Change the pronouns to like boy right next to me instead of girl right next to me. And that, was my life at, at 14, 15. And, it was just it was a different experience for me. you know.
Yeah.
And I still hold them very dear to my heart.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Look at your Instagram. You travel. Would you go last year to see him?
I saw them, I traveled to Peru. Actually, what's funny is that I went to the Square One premiere.
Right.
And,
in Amsterdam, right? Was it Amsterdam or LA?
Well, no. So this was in LA, the first premiere.
Right.
So I flew on a Friday to LA late at night, got there, went to the premiere that same day.
Mm-hmm.
Early Sunday morning, flew from LA to Atlanta, met one of my friends, and flew from Atlanta to Peru to see the Goos. And then, so I saw them in Peru. And then, so that was insane, though, because it was like within 2 days, I'd like flown everywhere.
On a whim? Just on a whim?
No, it was planned.
Okay.
We could talk about that offline a little bit.
Okay.
And then we went to the UK. The same friend and I went to the UK to see them. We also saw them in like Arizona, North Carolina. God, can't even keep track now. I'm a lot.
Wow. The cool things you can do when you don't have you have kids.
Yeah.
I tried to go to Atlanta to see Metallica after they came to Miami 3 years ago. I was like, oh wait, I gotta work in 2 days. I can't do that, and I gotta take the kid to school.
Yeah, self-employment also really helps too, because it's like.
What was that?
Self-employment also really helps.
That's true.
I don't have to. The boss, when I have to ask the boss for time out, she can be kind of a pain in the ass, but then, the boss being me.
Yes, that's very true. How
Yes.
has COVID impacted you a lot in terms of the business, or is it so steady for the most part?
I've, knock on wood, been lucky where nothing has gotten scary or anything, and I don't know a lot of people are in bad financial situations right now.
Right.
But there's been a downturn in business, but we're staying afloat. So, knock on wood.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing. You have your own thing. That's great. God, I'm so proud of you. It's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Sometimes I want to give it all up and become a dolphin trainer, but
a dolphin trainer? Are you serious?
Yeah. I'm just joking because I think I would look great in a wetsuit. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. I do not want to be a dolphin trainer.
Yeah. That's funny.
I do wonder though, about if I want to do PR for forever, because the landscape of the media is just changing so much.
Oh, I know.
And
that.
In my industry is based on the media, so I don't know. We'll see how things evolve. I definitely like crafting narratives and building brands. I just don't know what that's going to look like in 10 years.
Right. Speaking of media, because I've been independent media for the last 8-9 years now, between podcasting, sports media, all that stuff, and writing stuff. Bomani Jones.
Yes.
How long have you known him for? How did you get to know him?
So I've known Bomani since I was, I think, 17 going on 18.
Wow.
And and the reason that we became acquainted was that he wrote an article about Michael for Salon.com that I took issue with.
Right.
Yeah. I took issue with it, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I did call him a name on a message board. I was young. I wouldn't do that now, I swear. I think I called him a punk or something like that, and he was just like, "Oh no." So he emailed me. He reached out and emailed me.
Oh wow.
And we talked. It was actually a pretty condescending email initially, and so then I fired back, and then I think he was just like, "Oh wow, okay, she's not just like a crazy fan. She actually has things to say." And then he wrote me back a very thoughtful email too, and I made some points that I perhaps hadn't initially considered in my 17-year-old rage, and we were cool from that point on. He's a great person, one of the smartest people that I know. He's killing it.
I've been a fan of his since the mid-2000s. The first time I saw him actually was on the Michael Jackson documentary, back in 2003, 2004. And then I saw him a little bit on ESPN, on Page 2, whatever. And then his radio show he did in 2008, 2009, I got into, inspired me to do podcasting. Actually, to be honest with you,
Really?
what got me to podcast? No, seriously, he had a radio show he did out of North Carolina. Okay, that was.
I remember when he was doing his PhD, and then he was a professor.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a Morning Jones, but it was a Canadian show. So, but he would do the show remote from North Carolina, and I remember hearing the show. First time, I remember seeing him on First Take on ESPN, and I was like, well, this guy knows what he's talking about, and I like what he's doing. And then he did. I saw the show. I heard the show for the first time, like back in 2008 or 9, what year it was. I was like, to me, that show inspired me to get back to do media again. Because that was one of the to me to this day is probably still my favorite radio show ever. Because it was uncensored, number one. The kind of family it built, the kind of community it built around it, and which he still has to this day. It inspired me. And I remember this because I remember one time he was doing the show, and every year on your birthday he would shut you out every time, whether it was that show or his ESPN show.
Yeah.
He would always shut you out. I'm like, holy shit, she knows Josie. And also I know Bomani also wrote about music too, aside from sports, years back. And I love I always loved his candor. Whether I agree or disagree with him or not, it doesn't matter. But I used to enjoy his work in general, in music as well too. So I've been a huge fan. But the fact that he would shout you out and say every year, and he did it every year too, for the record. Every year he would shout you out. I'm like, wow, this is cool.
Huh.
So.
Bomani's great. He lives in New York now. Unfortunately, I don't see him as often as I wish.
He was here in Miami for a little while. He was down here for a couple of years with Laboratory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something about Bomani that I always think is pretty remarkable is I'm somebody who doesn't pay attention to sports at all.
You don't at all? Nothing? Not like football? No.
Not
NBA?
Nothing really. I'm like, yay, sports, go ball.
Oh, you really are one of those. Oh, you weren't joking.
Yeah, I really was not. There's just I like soccer.
I do too.
During the World Cup, that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we could talk about soccer maybe a little bit. But other than that, I really don't.
You remind me of, when you said that. Remind me of, remember that time Michael Jackson was in London with Dave Blaine and Uri Geller, and this reporter asked him about what he was going to see, and he goes, soccer. This crossed my mind when he said that. I don't know. Soccer? I don't know.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm somebody who doesn't pay attention to sports, but I'm interested in what he has to say because it's not even so much about the sports itself. It's that he's putting it in context of, larger pop culture and history and everything else to make it interesting to somebody who isn't a sports fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a real gift that Bomani has.
Let me say this, and I've been saying this for a long time. You probably see me post this numerous times on Facebook or on Twitter. Bomani Jones is the most talented guy in media, period. Not just sports media. Like, to me, he's the most talented guy in media, period. I mean, does he come condescending at times? Absolutely. I mean, he even sent me a message one time saying, so, like the way, like an attitude, but I think whatever, it is what it is. But that said, he's amazing.
Part of his charm, though. But also, here's the thing, too. It's like, being an ethnic person, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
In media and public, anytime you assert your worth, you're accused of being, arrogant, you have a big ego, whereas, other people would just be described as self-assured, confident. So, Bomani's going to be criticized pretty much any way he carries himself. So he might as well, assert, his worth and make it known that he won't back down from his opinions, and I totally respect him for that.
What do you think about his Caucasians shirt?
God, that was amazing. That delighted me so much.
My buddy Mark wore that shirt on this podcast a couple weeks ago when we were talking. He wore it on the show. It was like Caucasian shirts on my way. Like ever since that day, it's like, wow, it's amazing. That shirt, I can't get over it. To be honest with you. Can't get over it.
And how salty certain people got over that.
I love it.
Too.
I love it. I love it.
I love it.
Are you excited about the election?
I'm just dreading all of this. I mean, every day we get closer, I dread more and more.
What are you dreading?
I'm somebody who has a lot of political thoughts, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I just really feel like the worst is being brought out in everybody right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been happening for the last couple of years. I think now we're in this bubble now. I would say politically, I think you're probably a lot more left than I am, I guess.
Maybe I'm lefty, left. I'm like very left, like.
And I'm center, like creamy center.
Yeah.
You know, although now, granted, you probably didn't know this back in 2002. I was Republican back then.
I did know that, actually.
You didn't know that?
I did.
Okay, because of the Christian background, that's why.
Yes.
My views have progressed a lot.
Are you independent now?
Oh yeah, I'm an MPA. I left the party in 2007.
Yeah.
It's funny, you know, I was raised in a church, you know, so a lot of that was lumped in. And when you're a kid, you don't really know much. You just go based on what you're taught, and your parents tell you this and that. And then you see the world through your own goggles, and before you know it, you know, some of your views start to change and evolve, you know. And in my case, it did. There's still a lot of conservative things I do, you know, agree with, but most of that, to be honest, is mostly economical. I would definitely say I'm a social liberal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I used to be pro-life, now I'm pro-choice, because I believe not because I am pro-abortion, more so I'm more pro-women's rights.
Pro-women having autonomy over their bodies.
Yeah. I think I gotta credit my wife for this, because my wife is the one, although she's an MPA herself too as well, she's much more left-leaning than I am, and she kind of sort of, you know, showed me the light a little bit on that argument, for example. Because when we met, I was still pro-life, and you know, you can't kill babies, and her talking to me and having discussions when we were dating, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, and I now have that same view. So yeah, yay me.
Yeah. Progress is good. It's funny because my best friend, like since I was 12 going on 13, she was a Republican too at that point in time, but has since, you know, changed. And same deal. She grew up in the church. She was very pro-life. You know, at that point in time, she's still, I think, pro-life in terms of like personally, like it's certainly not something that she, you know, abortion isn't something that she advocates for, but, you know, like you, she's grown and her position has changed where, you know, she believes that people should have, you know, agency over their own bodies. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think a lot of people, and I've never been a Republican, and I will preface this by saying, you know, nobody in my immediate family is a Republican. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of Republicans look at what the Republican Party has become and just can't associate with it anymore.
Oh, no.
And I think,
yeah, absolutely. It's just funny, like how it's evolved even after I left. I was ahead of the curve like 9 years before that, you know, leaving.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I would say like mainstream Democrats are essentially what Republicans were in the 80s.
Right.
At this point, you know.
John Kennedy will be Republican today.
Yeah.
Shit, Joe Biden is probably Republican now by if you use the same, you know, rules.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nancy Pelosi going on and on about how, you know, we're a capitalist society. I mean, that's right in line with Reaganomics, if we're being completely honest. You know, so I also have my issues with the Democratic Party too.
Oh, we've discussed this already.
For the record. Yeah.
I think we had a little discussion on that on Twitter a couple weeks ago, actually.
Yeah.
Well, so you're more like on the AOC Bernie Sanders camp?
Yes. Yeah. I'm definitely left, progressive, I would say. There's nobody that I agree with 100% on anything, but I do align more that way. And I grew up, you know, talking about this all the time because my dad's a political science professor.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. So, you know, it was always very, you know, being politically aware and having strong opinions, but also opinions that could be nuanced, you know, something that was always encouraged.
So if I had a chance I will vote, but if I had a chance to pick who I want for president, it would have been Andrew Yang, for the record.
Okay.
Because he's the only guy that was talking about issues.
Yeah.
Real issues.
Yeah.
and he's considered
I can
progressive.
respect that. Yeah.
I don't know.
I totally can respect that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's Bernie Sanders progressive, but he's definitely in that camp, at least close to that camp.
He's definitely more progressive than like the Pelosi, Biden, Kamala Harris, which is also why I think it's so funny too that Trump keeps on saying that she's the most liberal person in Congress. Kamala, I'm like, who? What?
Yeah,
like,
so I have a lot of conservative friends, a lot. I have a lot of friends who are Trump, fans, and they keep using the whole thing about, Joe Biden, socialism. Like, you can't play both ways. You can't sit and say, this and that Bernie is the guy, socialist, and all that, and then saying Joe Biden's a socialist when Joe Biden is actually pissing off the far left wing of the party. You can't play both ways. Pick one.
No.
You know what I'm saying? For example, defunding the police, even though he said, I am not for defunding the police, which pissed off the far left.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm getting tired of voting against someone. I would like to vote for someone for once.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years.
A great way to put it. Yeah.
I keep saying that.
That's a great. I feel like it's been that way for a while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I voted for Hillary because I didn't want Trump to win. I don't like Hillary Clinton.
Right.
I've been very vocal about that for years. I don't like her. I don't trust her.
I'm not a fan. I think she's very hawkish. I think it goes back again. I don't think there's a ton of difference between her and most of the Republican Party.
Thank you.
But having said that, I did vote for her because again I didn't want Trump to be president.
You have to admit though he's kind of entertaining though. You have to admit a little bit.
Yeah, here's the thing. If he didn't mobilize such a repugnant part of society, I would be entertained, but he just empowers them. He empowers this group that, at one point in time was at least like sort of ashamed of, how terrible and hateful and racist they were. But at this point they feel no shame, and maybe some people are like, oh, well, it's better for them to say to your face. Yeah, but they're not just saying it to your face now. They're just screaming it at full volume, and they don't stop. And, it just, I would think he was funnier were it not for that.
So I'm not a Trump guy, but I have to be honest with you, some of his base, I do understand why they feel the way they feel. Like, I understand that. Like, in 2016, when Hillary Clinton's not even going and campaigning in Wisconsin or other places that she thinks she has in the bag, it speaks to the frustration of America.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I mean, he definitely played to a part of our population that feels that they've been, neglected, and nobody wants to feel like they're about to be. I mean, this is very telling. Nobody wants to feel like they're going to be treated like the minority, right? Because look at how every society treats the minority.
Yeah.
And, Donald Trump definitely played upon the fears of the people who have been, told that they're going to be part of like a marginalized part of society. And when somebody like a Hillary Clinton doesn't like acknowledge them, that feeds into those fears even more.
And to be honest, the Democratic Party has, just by the optics alone, they've gone from the working middle class to now more elite,
Yeah.
And that's a fact. The optics are where they are. A lot of people, people get pissed off when Trump wins the election, but don't understand why we got to this point. You can be mad all you want, but how do we get here? And I'm in a family of Democrats too, especially.
Electoral college system as well.
I think, okay, so I do agree that tweaking, yes, to the system, but it's only a problem when Democrats lose it.
Yeah, but when has it been? When have the Democrats not won both the Electoral College and the popular vote?
They've always won. Always won both. They've never lost to the popular, right?
So this is where it starts. It's just
it's definitely a lot of it too. Is also is the amount of votes that are in certain states should be given more because of the population, obviously.
Right. Exactly.
One can argue that
of slavery.
One can argue California 55% enough. One can argue that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's actually a country in itself. I don't know. It's just, this. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm gonna vote Biden, but it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I mean, it's like I saw some tweet and it was just like, "Go Biden," I guess. It's just kind of where I am. I mean, I don't think he's a bad person. Not my cup of tea, but I will be voting for him.
You think he'll win?
I really don't know. I don't know. I think it depends. I think it depends on states like Pennsylvania, and Florida, and those.
God. It's going to become Florida again. Come on. Of course, it's Florida. Florida, because we are the epicenter of the world, of course. Fucking undersea.
But those very people that we were talking about that feel like they're overlooked and are so worried about being forgotten in society. Mm-hmm. It's going to come down to them and whether they're willing to either shift their vote from a Trump, or if they're willing to be mobilized if they sat out last election.
So I would like to. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, I would like to think that a lot of people who sat out the last election would be mobilized now, because they really, like, maybe before they thought that there was like no difference between Trump and Hillary, mm-hmm. and now that they're seeing that Trump is a very different beast,
right?
Than maybe they thought. Because I think a lot of people just kind of thought he was going to be this joke, and one could argue sometimes he is, but he has really very real consequences, and his actions have very real consequences in society. So I hope that those people would be mobilized to vote, if not in favor of Biden, against Trump.
A lot of folks, 2016.
I really don't know.
Yeah, a lot of folks, 2016, used the fuck around, find out card.
Yeah.
Fuck around, find out. Let's see. It can't be that bad, right? Depends on perspective. Depends on perspective. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I would have said Biden would have won about a month ago, but being in Florida, of course, too, I'm feeling this groundswell of Trump support now. This groundswell coming up now. They are the loudest of the two. They are of the two factions. They are the loudest. It's not even close.
Yeah.
So
it's like a weird, New York City is notoriously liberal. I think the only part of New York that goes red is Staten Island. New York City, that is. Upstate New York is much more conservative. But
is Brooklyn liberal too? Brooklyn?
Yeah, Brooklyn goes blue usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm from there, so that's my birthplace.
Yes, so. Yes. There are parts of Brooklyn that are more conservative, like Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst, Baker Heights, that sort of thing. But for the most part, Brooklyn goes blue. But then my neighborhood is like, I live in, I'm not going to say where, in Queens, but where.
So you're still in New York. Okay. You're still in New York.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I am visiting my parents in the DMV. But I do live in Newcastle. And where I live in Queens, it's interesting because it's like, I would say half hipsters. So you can imagine like super liberal, usually a lot of them have gone to Ivy League schools, or at least like, highly rated liberal arts schools, go blue or, are very progressive. And then the other half are either like recent Slavic immigrants, or like Italian Americans who are like now 3-4 generations in. And it's like night and day in terms of political opinions. And like I'm in a Facebook group for the neighborhood, and the infighting, it's insane. I guess I just don't have the opportunity to get into those types of like screaming political arguments on an everyday basis.
Right.
And nobody's in the middle here. Everybody's very polarized. And it's along ethnic lines. There's also a fairly large Egyptian population. In that neighborhood. But I actually have no idea what their political leanings are. It was just funny because the population of the neighborhood is very much like what I am, sort of, but not at all. So I remember moving in and feeling like, oh, okay, I'm at home. And then like I listened to people who were the things that I was, and then I'm like, okay, I am not them. I am on the other side.
election, what was it, 58 days away, something like that? Good Lord.
God, yeah.
I'm dreading it. So I'm a political nerd. I like following polls and all this stuff. I listen to podcasts all the time. So I don't mind having discussions with people about this stuff because it's as long as you're in it to be rational, not in it to be a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? And it's it is a polarizing time.
Yeah, I have to like remind myself to step out of my bubble too, because most of my friends are fairly politically aligned the way I am, or if they're not exactly the way I am, it's like they're more like as a centrist towards left. And I have to remind myself to like step out of my bubble and realize that's not the entire country. And I don't want to silence everybody who doesn't agree with me. I want to understand why.
No, I am so anti-cancel culture. You have no idea. Like, to me, yeah. I am so First Amendment free speech. Like,
yeah.
Obviously consequences are consequences, of course. You know what I'm saying? But I am so pro free speech. It's not even funny.
So I have a question for you. What
Sure.
do you think about, in France, hate speech is not protected under the, freedom of speech. In the U.S., we don't have anything comparable. Do you think that hate speech should be allowed here, even if it's inflammatory?
It's tough because part of me says yes, unfortunately, because you don't want to start down that slippery slope of banning things. There's a slippery slope of that. I feel like if you do hate speech, you're an idiot because you're going to end up getting caught and it's going to cost you money. I feel like you can hurt somebody. So this is going to sound really bad. I'm actually one of the people who says, you know what? Fuck it. Say what you want. Say what you want. You know why? Because you hurt yourself and your pocketbook. Who's going to hire you now? You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not for hate speech, but I feel like, let them hurt themselves. Maybe they'll learn a lesson by doing something they shouldn't have done in the first place, and then they get caught on video, and so
But what if it's not an individual? What if it's a media outlet?
You got to figure it would impact the viewers too. Are you willing to say that most race people in this world are not racist? I mean, on a granular level, like not racist, even if they may have some certain biases, I guess. Mm-hmm. There isn't a racist station right now. That exists in this country, and I don't think any media want to do that in the first place. So why would it be a thing now? I don't know. I'm pro free speech. And to me, it's like, okay, you want to fuck up your own life, go right ahead. Because in this age of technology, someone will find out. And that's the one thing about Trump, I will say, that's not Trump necessarily, but the era we're in now. It's that, at least now who's racist, or who you now know how people are. Like, it's in the open now. They feel emboldened to express themselves. So you can actually choose your friends wisely now. You actually choose your friends now without worrying about what they say behind your back.
This is true, but I do miss people being a little bit ashamed of their terrible thoughts.
Well, yeah. This is why you troll them, and then at the end of the day, they gotta live with it themselves anyway. You want to be racist, go right ahead. You're not gonna fuck up my life. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Excuse my language. I mean, you're not gonna. I'm gonna keep on grinding. I'm gonna keep on living. You ain't gonna hurt me. You hurt me. You want to call me N-word? Go right ahead. You hurt yourself, man. You see, the thing is with me, I don't allow things like that to impact me in that way. I choose to take that on. I choose to take that on. If I want it to offend me and be victimized, that's on me. I'm not allowing people that don't matter, people who are pieces of shit, to impact who I am. I'm going to continue moving forward, because I have been, So, but that's just me. Not everybody thinks the same way I do. Some people are more offended than others. I don't know. My wife thinks I'm like with everything going on with the unrest and the cops and all this stuff, that she thinks I'm being quite not angry enough about it. She's more angry than I am, and she's white, by the way. White and Jewish. So, but I told her, listen, I at the end of the day, that's on them. They have to answer to their higher power at the end of the day. I'm good. You ain't offending me.
Just because you mentioned, are your kids Jewish?
Half. I guess I have. We don't teach them Jewish. I mean, we don't practice it.
Like, are they being raised Jewish? Okay.
No, they be raised Christian.
Oh, interesting.
In both ways. Not just the last name.
Just not just last name. I'm curious to know, because I know that you have, like a strong foundation in the church. So I'm just like, I'm curious.
I did, and I still have a lot of those. I still have a lot of like I guess lessons, you want to call it. Like, I don't know. I'm not tied to as much as I used to. In other words, I've become more individual based. Take a little from here, take a little from here, and then I'm not opposed to going to church. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of that, like, stereotypical people roll their eyes at it, spiritual but not religious.
Yeah.
Person.
I'm definitely not. I'd say this much, at least when you knew me way back when, and even back then I was already coming out of that too. To be honest with you, the evangelical world, that was I was exposed to that for a couple of years, and right. I slowly got out of that. Even in 2002, 2003, I got out of that. I still had my values, but even then I knew that was a little extreme for my taste.
Yeah,
that's just me though. I don't know. Everybody has their own. What do you practice anything?
I am. Well, so I have an interfaith background. My mom is Catholic and my dad is Muslim.
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. So, and I went to Catholic school, was baptized Catholic, but like culturally, was exposed to a lot of Muslim things, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I always say I'm everything, I'm nothing. I believe in a higher power, but yeah, I have a hard time. I'm sorry?
So you're Jackson Knees. I'm joking.
Exactly, yes. Higher power.
Yeah.
If I'm not listening, God will give songs to Prince instead of me. I'm kidding.
Jeez. That wasn't real rival. They weren't really rivals in that way, though.
No. I mean, but you remember, you've read that quote before, though, right?
Of course I have, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I like to think. I don't know if that actually happened, but I like to think that it did.
Can we argue? I think the comparison the two is actually really dumb. Like, to me, it's like LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Like, the two completely different artists.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people who go to town in terms of like defending either artist, or have a little bit of a chip on their defending either artist in the sense of like they have to denigrate the other artist in order to build theirs up. They have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. If you really thought he was better than whomever, and I'm not specifying who I'm talking about now, you wouldn't have to bash the other one. Their marriage would stand on its own. So
and they really do, to be honest with you, without you having to screw up the comparisons.
Exactly.
It is what it is.
Like they're different. They're different creatures, both so valuable to music, both so gifted. One doesn't need to be better than the other. They can both be geniuses.
So who you listen to these days, like music wise?
The same people that I listened to when I was like 10.
Jesus Christ. Well, okay. Let's sideboard Michael and Goo Goo Dolls a second. Let's sideboard both those artists. Anything like anybody in the last 10, 15 years have impressed you? Like, oh, not bad.
Like, oh my God, they're incredible. I mean, I like The Weeknd. I really like Chloe and Halle. Am I saying their name right? I'm not sure. I like Kanye. I think he's very smart and talented. Troubled, yes. But
I
think he's a great.
I feel like Kanye. Maybe this is me. I feel like his heart's in the right place. I don't know why. I feel like his heart's in the right place.
I think it is. I think it is too. I think maybe he needs to work out the cocktail of medications.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that like in a mean way. I truly think it's probably a hard thing to manage. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that he has to manage it in front of the world.
Yeah.
He can't privately, have his freakouts. Or I mean, he can, but it's very easily reported. I think Kanye is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Nas isn't new at all, but like Nas is going to be my favorite MC forever. I really like Schoolboy Q. I like Fall Out Boy. I like Blue October.
So, oh my God! This is not even the bands that my wife got me into. So, okay, Fall Out Boy I sort of
Your
liked.
wife and I get along.
Yeah.
She's Virgo.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, so Fall Out Boy I knew about for a long time. But when I met her, she was into that stuff. And Blue October I got into because of her. Because, again, I've, to this day, we're now going 14 years, and I don't have control of the stereo anymore. So, she puts on her shit. And Blue October was one of those early bands we listened to when we first started dating. And not bad.
Oh, really?
Not terrible, no.
Yeah.
Is that as heavy as you go though, Fall Out Boy? Do you go heavier than that?
Do I go what?
Is that as heavy as you go in terms of rock music, Fall Out Boy?
No, I go heavier. I mean, but the heavier stuff that I listen to is older. You know, I can't think of anything that's super heavy that I listen to that's contemporary. I mean, I still really like Bush and I like Live and
I love Live.
Yeah, and I like Guns N' Roses and all that. But Metallica, I like certain Metallica songs.
You know Metallica songs.
I'm sorry?
Also, you know Metallica songs, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to grow up in the 90s and, not know some Metallica. But, I mean, obviously they're very talented. I would say, there's certain artists that I might not, aren't for me, but I can recognize that they're very, very talented. Mm-hmm. And Metallica is one of them.
You check out the S&M stuff they did. They did number 2 recently. They just came out 2 weeks ago. The S&M stuff's amazing.
S&M?
That's the Symphony Metallica. They do with a symphony. They play all the stuff with a symphony. So they did this. They did this 21 years ago, in 1999. And then they did it again recently last year, part 2. And they added some new songs. They added songs they from albums they did in the last 20 years. It's incredible. Bomani Jones went to see him last year. One of the shows. He actually on his podcast was talking about that, how he was impressed how incredible the energy and just the crowd is like cult like. it really is, to be honest with you. He said he was amazed at how good. Yeah, he said he was amazed how well it sounded, because he's not into that kind of music normally, but
Yeah. But speaking of cult like and sounding amazing, 9 Inch Nails also always a favorite.
So I saw them live in 2006. Not a huge fan of them necessarily, but a couple songs I could pick out. I was like, it's not bad. That's not bad, I
don't even know what's heavy and out now. Is there heavy music out now?
Okay, so the bands I love, they may be too heavy for your taste. Okay, so Metallica obviously is my favorite band in the world. I love Queen. Right. I love Queen, obviously.
Oh, of course.
I love Freddie Mercury. I mean, to me, my top 3 is Michael, Metallica, and Queen, that order. Then Megadeth. That's a little heavy for you too, but the guitar player used to play Metallica years ago.
Now, contemporary artists, ones that.
Oh, now? Okay, so, I actually love Bruno Mars.
Oh, I love Bruno Mars. He's fantastic. But I mean, I'm just are there artists doing heavy metal now? I assume that there are, but I just can't name one.
Bands today that I'm into that's somewhat new. Not really. Yeah. I'm like you now. I'm listening to things I listened to 15, 20 years ago.
It's I was trying to think about that. I mean, there's lots of contemporary. I do love Bruno Mars. I love Beyonce. My birthday.
You still love Beyonce? I remember you being a Beyonce nut for a while.
Yeah, I love Beyonce.
So, I gotta be honest with you.
You don't love her?
Well, I respect the shit out of her. I think she's gorgeous.
Are you a beefeist?
No, I think her fan base is insane though. But that's like any fan base though. No, I love her first album, and then I hate everything else, and I love Lemonade.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. I feel like her popular stuff, it doesn't resonate. There are a couple songs here and there I like, of course, but a lot of her catalog does not resonate with me in the same way. I would probably listen to Rihanna before I listen to Beyonce.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
So B-Day. You don't like B-Day? Like Sugar Mama? Prince used to cover that in concerts.
I think Beyonce is the best performer alive. I'll give you that. Oh, yeah. Without question. I think at this point. I think her and Bruno Mars are the only 2 people I even consider being the best performers in the world that's alive.
Yeah. I think that goes without saying.
I'll go to a concert any day of the week, but but I would never consider myself a huge Beyonce fan. Like, cause like there's stuff that I like. Okay, it's like a couple. If I Was a Boy is a good song, and a couple of other songs here and there. But I'm not like over music. Now, Lemonade's amazing. I'll say that. Lemonade's an amazing record though, because that was the first album I think showed more diversity.
Yeah, Lemonade was an incredible project. Just like the totality of it, with the short film.
Yeah, we watched it. My wife and I watched that when it premiered, and I was stunned. I was shocked. Like, oh my god.
I don't think anybody thought that was coming in that context like at all.
Yeah.
Have you seen Black is King?
No. I'm sure I'll see it at some point. Did you watch it?
Yeah, it was incredible. And I'm not just saying that because I love Beyonce, but it was so visually moving at points that I actually cried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was really taken aback. I didn't quite know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had listened to the Gift album when it came out,
mm-hmm.
and what I will say is that I wish that the Gift album could have come out at the same time as Black is King, because I appreciated so much more within the context of Black is King.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was really incredible. I know that there are some people who take issue with it because anything that is like, asserting Black pride, certain people take that as like hatred towards other races when it's just really Black pride. But it's just such an incredible project.
Is it out of pocket to say that? Because I remember looking at Beyonce's record sales in the last couple of years and looking at her entire catalog. Like, you would think she was sold more records.
Yeah, you would, but she really hasn't.
And
one, people aren't buying records.
Well, that's true, but
yeah, in large part. But if they are, they're buying. For what it's worth, country music and people who are country adjacent sell the most records because those are the people who still go out and buy music.
But can I argue that because Beyonce chose a lane in the last 5 to 10 years where she's gonna be because Beyonce was pretty much more pop, was more a pop star, more poppy, at least coming out the gate in 03 solo, and the first couple records, and then I think the last couple records and projects she's pretty much gone pro-Black. I'm pro-Black, and she's probably in some ways alienated white fans.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. It's unfortunate, but
yeah,
I think it. But kudos to her for sticking to something that she knows and she can see is not that popular, but she's doing it because it feels right to her.
Yeah, I respect that.
She has a platform. Yeah, and she has a platform and she's using it in a way that she feels is socially responsible.
But this is why when you got I bring Michael again, but because the last couple of years the Beyonce Michael comparisons are to me they're ridiculous because
the Beehive for the most part is insufferable, and they might come for me if they listen to your podcast.
No, that's fine. No, the thing is though, it's like I feel like Michael was more of a unifier. Like Michael was pro-Black, but he was so subtly pro-Black in the ways. Like he always had a Black, in all his videos, a Black woman next to him, whatnot. Yeah. And
I think he went over a lot of people's heads. A lot of his pro-Black messaging.
Right.
And there's something to be said for that. It kind of bothers me now, though, to see certain fans try to erase his pro-Blackness, and because they just don't get it, and because he's not here to speak for himself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people saying, okay, like I saw something like Michael wouldn't be for Black Lives Matter. One, how could you possibly, put yourself in a position where you're speaking for him?
Not only that, he would actually be the one quietly giving financial, help to these, not saying a word about it. That's people don't get.
Yeah, he absolutely would. And I think it's funny that people would think that the man who put out "They Don't Care About Us" would not be on the side of the oppressed. Just point blank.
It's comical to me, and people who are saying this are saying it because they're trying to push an agenda. They don't actually believe that. They're trying to prop their person up by pushing one down, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Holy crap! We're an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Not bad. Good. I didn't think I was saying maybe 45 minutes, 50 minutes we'll do this, and that's good. And damn, hour and a half. Thanks on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was lovely to speak to you.
Of course. We got to do this again. I actually want to talk to you again probably before the election.
Yeah, I'm down.
And get your.
Talk to me. I'm stuck in my apartment because I am for the most part because I'm afraid of disease and pestilence. So.
I get it. I have to work, unfortunately. Well, and I'm glad I have a job and I'm able to, still, have the right mask, of course, and all that. It's been okay for the most part, But
okay. Stay safe though, please. Take all the precautions.
Yeah, we just entered phase 2 on Tuesday, so that's not bad. Although we were at phase 2 in June, and then a governor fucked up.
Yeah.
And then he went backwards again. Now I'm back to phase 2 again. So we'll see what happens. And
one of my colleagues, who you might know, the other EJ, he went back down to Florida.
You mentioned him all the time.
His family is.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
EJ Grant, shout out to EJ.
I don't know that
he
name.
ended up with he contracted coronavirus.
Oh, really?
From going to the gym in Florida. Yeah, in Tampa.
Wow. How long ago was this?
Yeah. This was a couple months ago. Luckily he seems to have recovered completely. But yeah, he's like pretty certain it was from going to the gym. Because as soon as the gyms reopened, or maybe they never closed, I don't know, but he went like pretty early on. And sure thing, a few days later.
Is he okay though?
Yes, thank God. He appears to be fine. He had a very mild case. Just putting his business in the streets. But we're all very happy that he's well again, right? Yeah.
It's all that matters, man, right?
Yeah.
All
so
EJ...
you stay healthy, stay well.
Yeah. All EJs matter. Come on now.
Yes.
Josie, we'll talk soon. I promise I have another podcast before the election. I want to get your take on the state of the world in probably October.
Yeah, please. Let's talk about after the debates. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Let's do that, okay?
Okay.
We'll talk soon, okay?
Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.